It's time to build another character in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. This time we're going to be taking a little bit of a break from the hero typical character and look more at building, I guess, a villain character, if you will. This is actually my character for ongoing, currently on hiatus, evil game, where we are all playing evil characters. But I thought it would be interesting to go through it and discuss this character more, as you could potentially use them as a villainous NPC in your game. So if you want to see who that is and what this character build is, stay tuned. I'm whispering because he's College of Whispers bard. What's going on, folks? Ted from Nerd Immersion here, and well, cat's out of the bag on that one. It is my character Temerity, the Tiefling College of Whispers bard. Now, when we were going to decide we were going to do an evil game, I really liked the concept of the College of Whispers bard because I liked the idea of a bard being, not necessarily being able to smite, because that's not necessarily how it works, but being able to do a bunch of extra damage with their psychic blades feature. The problem being, most people will argue, and in a lot of cases rightfully so, that a Whispers bard is a bad choice because it benefits that bard more in that respect to use their bardic inspiration selfishly by using it to increase the damage of your own attacks, where for the most part, bards should be giving out their bardic inspiration to their allies to help them, do whatever they need to do with the inspiration. So that being said, this is why this is absolutely perfect for it, because this is a villainous character. This character doesn't care about necessarily helping out their allies, so they could be using this again as an NPC villain for your campaign, or if you're playing an evil campaign like I am, it works out well. So we're going to jump over to D&D Beyond, and attempting to try to do what I did the last time, I will show you my character build later, but we'll build the character from the ground up using point buy, and then we'll kind of see how they compare, and I'll kind of talk you through the process as we go. So we're going to jump over here. So here we are on D&D Beyond. So I just copied my character. My character is currently level 7. I figured we'd build the character up to level 12. That's a pretty good spot. So race, he is a tiefling. I wanted to look at, so again, in my game where we're actually playing this character, we rolled stats. So that kind of helped me get a little bit higher ability scores than I would normally have using point buy. And I knew I was going to be charisma based. And this was right after like the Mordenkainen's tiefling variants came out, and I was like, man, there's a lot of really cool, interesting variants of tiefling. I would really like to pick one of those because that also gives me access to tiefling-based feats that are in Xanathar's Guide. So tiefling, we're gonna get dark vision. We're gonna get a +2 charisma, but as a Glacia tiefling, rather than getting +2 charisma, +1 intelligence, we're going to get +2 charisma, +1 dexterity, which as a bard and a finesse weapon type wielder, +1 in dexterity is going to be useful. We are still going to get our hellish resistance in fire damage, and we're going to get Legacy of Malbolge, which is a different one than we would have if we were the base tiefling. So it's going to give us minor illusion as a cantrip. 3rd level, we're going to get Disguise Self once per long rest, and at 5th level, we're going to get Invisibility once per long rest. And again, the concept of this character is he is a trickster, he is a thief, he is not necessarily like a shape changer, but he will take on personas to intimidate or impersonate whatever he needs to do to get the information he needs to get stronger. And as we get into the background, I'll talk a little bit about the concept behind the character, and you can feel free to use him in your own game and however you want to go. So, all right, so we are a level 1 bard at this point. We know we're going to build the character up to level 12. I'm going to go in like chunks, and then we'll do it from there. So first of all, at this level, we're going to choose our proficiency. So we're going to get a bunch of musical instruments. So I'm just going to choose a viol, a lyre, and a flute. He's a very sophisticated tiefling bard, so he actually only plays the violin, which was nice because my DM let me trade in the other musical instrument proficiencies to trade them in for something else, which I'll talk about when we get there. So he only plays the violin, and he prefers to play like traditional classical violin, like fiddling like hurts his soul, but he knows he can do it if he needs to to like, impress a crowd or get someone on his side, but he hates it. And then we chose proficiency in stealth, perception, and arcana. Again, we are going to be a sneaky type. We need to be aware of our surroundings, but we also need to be able to get in and out of places easily enough. So we're going to get our spellcasting and bardic inspiration at level 1. No big deal. All right, so let's jump ourselves up. I don't know where that accent came from. Let's jump ourselves up to level 3 so that we can choose our bardic college. So we're going to get Psychic Blades, as I said, which means we can expend a bardic inspiration when we hit with a weapon attack. Point of fact, it doesn't distinguish between ranged or melee, so you could, in theory, use a hand crossbow and shoot somebody with it, or, some other kind of ranged weapon, and still apply the Psychic Blades damage to that ranged attack. So it's only when you hit them, and you deal an extra 2d6 psychic damage to the target. And as you can see, this damage will increase as you level up, and it spends, you can only do it once per round, once per round on your turn. But it's psychic damage, which is very few things resist psychic damage. And again, it will increase eventually to a point at level 15 where you're essentially doing a fireball on a melee hit, but it also can crit. And it's when you hit, so you don't have a potential of missing when you do this. And eventually you're going to get bardic inspirations back on a short rest. So it's going to compound on top of that. So as far as our expertise, I chose perception for sure, because I knew perception was going to be a big one for me. And then I believe I also chose stealth. Yeah, those were the 2 I had picked. So that was that. For our ability scores, this is what I put in here using point buy. Obviously, again, when I rolled my ability scores, they were significantly higher. But you can see 8, 15, 14, 8, 12, 14. So our final numbers with our racial modifiers will be 8, 16, 15. I have a magic item on here. That's why it says 19. So it will be 8, 16, 15, 8, 12, 16. For his background, I made a custom background that I worked out with my DM, which I called Apothecary Owner. And the backstory behind this character is that he kind of worked and owned an apothecary shop that was really a front for a poison shop. And the skills that he got with that was deception and sleight of hand. I'm sorry. Yes, deception and sleight of hand. Yeah, that's right. And he got 2 tool proficiencies for that: herbalism kit and poisoner's kit. And the reason why is you could make the herbalism things you needed to keep the apothecary going, but you also could make poisons to keep that end of the business going. And since he is a villainous character for this campaign, I made the character. In my mind, I feel like the best villains are complex. So he is evil. He's chaotic evil, but he doesn't necessarily want to be. Without diving too heavily into the backstory, he was an orphan. He was a tiefling born to a human family. Parents died. Him and his 2 siblings were put into an orphanage. Older sister, younger brother. Older sister eventually got out of the orphanage. Said she was going to come back for them. Never did. Younger brother, as they were about to kind of leave, the younger brother got adopted. He was left alone, so he kind of felt bummed out about it. He learned to play the violin there, went out on the street, was performing, met someone, the love of his life on the street, also a street performer. They got married. He eventually started working at this business. The owner passed away, and he kind of took it over. Whether or not that was questionable means is up for you to determine. Well, basically, one night he lost control of his body. He doesn't know why it happened, and he was forced to kill his own wife. And then as soon as she died, he got control of his body again immediately. Has no idea what took over his body or why. I don't even know. I left that up to the DM to figure that out. And that's why he became evil, because he was trying to do good, live his life. Then the love of the life was taken from him by his own hand, and at that point he basically snapped and was just like, well, I'm never going to be happy again. I want to gain power by any means necessary to use that to find the thing that took my wife from me and make it suffer. And that is his whole drive for being evil. So he doesn't really have, if he got his wife back and everything was fine, he'd probably stop being evil, and then he'd have to deal with the whole coping with all the evil things he's done. But that's his whole character, right? For the most part, it's deep and complex, and he's not necessarily evil. He doesn't want to be, but he's doing it to gain power and, whatever he needs to do to get it. And then we just have basic starting equipment, and I'll talk about the magic items he has after the fact. Okay, so if we jump over here to our character sheet, we can kind of see what we've got going so far. So I'm going to go here and unequip any of the magic items that he's got because we don't have those. He has a whole bunch of them from the things that we've done thus far. So a couple of things. What are we going to choose? Oh, you know what? Let's go back and let's pick a feat here. Let's jump ourselves up a couple levels. So if we were going to go up to level 8, let's say, we currently have only a 16 charisma. So I want to bump that up to at least 18. And then again at level 8, we're going to get another one, and I would probably want to even out my constitution up to 16. So what we will take will be Infernal Constitution, if it's going to show up here, I think. Where is it? Oh, is that, do I already technically have it? I might already have it on the character sheet. We'll have to remove it and take it again. Yep, okay. So we're going to go to Manage Feats. We'll remove that, and then we'll remove Infernal Constitution. Now we're going to jump back. So our Constitution's actually 14 at the moment. Okay, well then realistically, I would probably put, at this point, I would put my Charisma at 20, right? That's going to power all of your spell casting, any spell attacks you have, and all of your kind of deception-based abilities. So let's go ahead and pick out our spells real quick that we have thus far. And he will have slightly different spell options than a lot of other characters might, because, again, we're focusing on being a sneaky, stealthy type character. We're not necessarily going to pick a ton of really common bard spells, but we'll pick some. So as far as cantrips, we're going to take Vicious Mockery. We're going to get Minor Illusion for free, so we don't need that. We're going to take Mage Hand, and we're going to take Prestidigitation. Those are pretty standard, but they're useful. Our first level spells, we're not going to take Cure Wounds, because we're not going to be curing any. We're going to take Healing Word, so we can bonus action heal ourselves if we need to. We're going to take Dissonant Whispers, as it is a classic bard move, and it fits with the Whispers theme. We're going to take Identify, because I always like the ability to identify magic items. And I think that was it, all that I had chosen for first level. For second level, we're going to choose, big one is going to be Phantasmal Force. We're going to use that one a lot because of the kind of mind-affecting illusions that can cause people, issues that could keep them in the same place. They have a lot of versatility there. We are going to choose Shatter. And the reason I didn't choose Thunderwave is because Thunderwave is a loud move, and he is a Whispers bard. He talks in a very soft-spoken voice, and he tries to keep himself as a low profile. And I'll talk a little bit about the character, because he's the opposite of that in the way he is in dresses and things, but doesn't try to be overly flashy with abilities if he can help it. Also going to take Suggestion as a pretty good one. Take Dispel Magic. And we're going to take Leomin's Tiny Hut so that we can constantly be in climate control. That leaves us 3 more spells. We'll take Dimension Door is another good one to have. And then I think we're going to go back and look at and see what else we could take here. A Fear would definitely be fitting for him. I think Silence is another good one for breaking and entering and other useful things. I think I have Hold Person possibly as well. There's a lot of, it really comes down to we are what you think the character can be as he's trying to, again, get his way, gain more power. He'll rub elbows with whoever he needs to, and he'll do whatever, by whatever means necessary to get in, get the stuff he needs, and get out, whether that's running a new job to get more money, to buy more resources, to whatever else, or if it's to take somebody out, whatever the case may be. Just looking at it, yeah, I mean, Disguise Self is good. He does get it once a day from the type of tiefling he is, so if you need to use it more than that. Detect Magic's also really good. Again, in the party I happen to be in our evil game, we have a Warlock. So, she's the Find the Magic, and then I'm the Identify the Magic person. So based on this, I think I had Knock for a little while for opening doors, but the fact that it makes such a loud knock, which is something I always forget about, I don't have it anymore. So we're just going to take Hold Person. Because the reason I only went up to level 8 is because at level 10, Well, we'll go up to 9. We'll choose another spell, because at 10, we're going to get magical secrets, and I'm still not sure even in the game that we're playing what I'm going to choose when I get to pick my magical secrets. So maybe you guys can help me source that out. So we're going to get 1 5th level spell, and for that, there's a lot of really good options. Mislead is one I really like, where you kind of go invisible and leave a duplicate behind. Modify Memory has a ton of applications for someone who's trying to sneak into places and get information. Scrying, very good for seeking out information. Synaptic Static is a nice, you can't see it because it's in front of, my video's in front of it, but Synaptic Static, very good for AoE damage and kind of a debuff. But I think what I'm going to choose is Animate Objects, mostly because 1, I really like Animate Objects, and 2, it has a lot of applications beyond just using them to attack. Like in theory, you could animate a door to have it open, stuff like that. All right, so now we're going to go back to our character and we're going to pull up. We're going to hit the level 10 because that's going to give us expertise in 2 additional skills. So we're going to choose for this sleight of hand and arcana. Actually, no, I said sleight of hand and deception for this character. Then we have 2 magical secrets. Now, this is very tricky because the 5th level magical secrets is going to give us a ton of options for things we could do. There are a lot of good standard options that you could choose. Spirit Guardians, one of the best spells in the game, if not the best spell in the game, very useful to have. For self-sustainability, we could choose things like Mirror Image. We could choose Shield. Arcane Eye is really good for doing recon, if that's the kind of thing you want to do. You could do Bigby's Hand, but I feel like it's been done by other bards, so it's kind of repetitive at this point. Death Ward, super useful to get, keep yourself alive. Dance Macabre is not exactly subtle, but it is a whole bunch of undead to help you deal with what you need to deal with. Let's see. Dominate Person, a pretty good one for someone who's trying to deal with intrigue, social, political intrigue, being able to control a person, have them say the things you want to say when they're out in public, or, go unlock that door and let us in, let us out. That could be very useful. Evard's Black Tentacles is just a creepy spell, and it also is a very powerful debuff and damage dealing spell. Find Familiar and Find Greater Steed, also really powerful abilities, right? To have that extra, an extra entity in combat, whether it be Familiar to provide help, to do the help action, to do more recon. Find Greater Steed gives you some decent, reliable access to flight, as well as another pretty substantial character to help you fight things. Let's see. It's really hard to pick. So, like, my gut wants to say something like Pass Wall is really good to just create an opening so you can sneak into a dungeon and get what you need, or get out of a room if you're trapped, just create a doorway. The only downside is Pass Wall lasts for an hour, so, like, you can make a doorway, but then, like, other people can go through it. Like, I wish you could just Pass Wall. I wish it was concentration, so you could create a wall and then end concentration to shut it behind you. So I might just put Pass Wall in here for now until you guys give me better options in the comments down below. And the other one that I just really like doing it, because I think it's really cool, is Steelwind Strike. Again, he is like a duelist in a lot of ways, so like the zapping around and stabbing people with a rapier, I thought is really cool. And then we'll just jump ourselves up to level 12 real quick and figure out what we're going to do. And realistically, on this character, I probably would also just choose Dexterity +2. That's the downside of not having rolled stats, is you're going to want to just boost them up as best you can. So now if we go and take a look at our character sheet again, we'll see where we're at. Oh, you know what? The hit points on this character are set to manual. So let's go ahead and change that. Manage HP. We are going to choose, oh wait, that's over here in the front. Hit points, fixed. Confirm. All right, because in that game, we're rolling hit points. So here we can see we have 8, 18, 14, 8, 12, 20. We have a +6 to our initiative due to being a bard. 87 hit points is not bad. We are resistant to fire from being a tiefling. I forgot we have another. We do have expertise in deception, expertise in perception, sleight of hand, and stealth. So we're gonna be able to spot things pretty good with a 19 passive perception and sneaking around with +12 and +12 to sleight of hand. The reason the apothecary owner had deception and sleight of hand as their skills was I figured if you're going to be a poisoner, you might want to have good sleight of hand to slip poison into people's drinks, and deception to lie through your teeth at the fact that you are really only an apothecary shop, not a poison shop. And then again, you can see we'll have pretty good stats in most other charisma-based abilities, as well as dexterity-based abilities, and then Jack of all trades is going to help round us out. We are going to get to choose a couple extra spells for our additional cantrip. We're going to choose probably, for this version of this character, Message. It's pretty useful. We are going to get access to a couple additional spells now. So we're going to get, or Mass Suggestion is our clear choice for 6th level, so that's what we'll choose. And then let's talk about our features that we have, right? So we are going to have Bardic Inspiration 5 times. It is currently a D10. If you do decide to give it to somebody else, you more than likely won't because you're kind of a villain solo character here. +2 for all of our Jack of all trades abilities. Song of Rest, if you do decide to do that during a short rest, you can get an extra D8 hit points. We have all of our expertise. Right now, our Psychic Blades will deal an extra 5d6 damage to a target. So if we strike someone, we would have a base rapier. So that would be a d8 plus our dexterity modifier, which is currently a 4. And then if we hit them, we can choose to expend a Bardic Inspiration to add an extra 5d6 psychic damage to that attack. Again, we can choose to use that after we crit or know that we rolled a natural 20 to turn that 5d6 into 10d6 psychic damage. We have Words of Terror. This one is less useful, but I actually have found means to use it. Once per short rest, you speak to a humanoid alone for 1 minute and cause it to become frightened of you or another creature of your choice. If it fails a wisdom saving throw of DC 17 at this point for 1 hour or until its allies are attacked or damaged, it's frightened of them. If it succeeds, it's not aware that you use this ability. That's the key, is if they succeed, they don't know you tried to influence them. So I actually used this. We were in like a tight, tough negotiations of a bunch of barbarian tribes where they obviously posture pretty heavily and who's tougher than who. So I managed to get the side we were going to side with. I managed to get the chieftain of the other side alone to have a conversation with him for a minute and made him frightened of the other chieftain. And no one knew why, but he was cowering before him. He was terrified of him, didn't want to be in the same room with him, which was a big benefit for us on the side we were backing, because now it makes it look like the enemy barbarian tribe's leader is afraid of the one that we're, on that side of. So therefore, that kind of made us win those negotiations, which was like a usage of that. It's not, I didn't choose to make them afraid of me. I chose to make them afraid of the other leader, which again, in that specific instance was quite useful. Counter Charm is pointless, forget that. And Font of Inspiration is we get those Psychic Blade uses once a short rest. Mantle of Whispers is very fun because this is like a good another version. So we have Disguise Self for free once a long rest. We also have Mantle of Whispers. As a reaction, when a humanoid dies within 30 feet of you, you can capture its shadow until you use it or you take a long rest or finish a long rest. As an action, you can use the shadow to disguise yourself as the dead person for 1 hour or until you end it as a bonus action. While disguised, you gain enough information to pass yourself off as the person. Another creature can detect the disguise with an insight check versus your deception check, but you have a +5 bonus. So you're going to have kind of like the surface knowledge of this person, enough to pass yourself off as them. Our deception currently is a 13. This is going to make it an 18 if someone tries to detect that we are not them. That's an 18 before we roll the die. So, right, a minimum of 1 on the die is going to mean our check is a minimum of a 19, maximum of 38 if we roll a natural 20 on our deception check. And then again, as we said, we took Pass Wall and Steel Wind Strike as our magical secrets. I'm still open again to suggestions for that. So that is basically this character in a nutshell. Like I said, he is like stark, like as deep onyx black skin as you can go. He's got gold eyes with no pupils or sclera, just solid gold. Kind of gray horns, like a slightly lighter, darkish gray hair. and a goatee, and he wears fancy suits and stuff like that, and he wields a rapier, and he plays a violin. So he's like, I feel like he does a pretty good job of being a villain, like or at least he's trying to sell himself as a villain. Like, I guess if he knew who Dracula was, he would try to emulate, you know, Count Dracula, the kind of swirling the goblet full of wine, sitting on the throne in the big castle and tormenting people and becoming kind of that counter to whoever else to get whatever he needs. And because of his chaotic evil nature, it could be because it's going to benefit him or because he enjoyed what he was doing at the time. Also, I should say he would have studded leather armor, right? So the AC would be at least 2 higher to be a 16. So that is the character as we just built him here from 1 to 12. If I were to show you how my character was, I'll show you how he was. He was at 7, and then I jumped him up to level 12 to kind of match this, and I'll show you how that character was. So I rolled my stats for this character, so I'll show you what they are. My rolled ability scores were 10, 17, 15, 10, 11, 17. I rolled pretty well, right? So with that, that means kind of out the gate, we're going to have a 19 charisma at level 1. We'd have a 15 constitution, and we'd have, so it would be 10, 18, 15, 10, 11, 19 when we started. So we were playing with all the Unearthed Arcana feats and things. So at level 4, I took Silver Tongued, which was an ability feat from one of the Unearthed Arcana skill feats, which gave you a +1 bonus to your charisma. If you had proficiency in deception, it gave you expertise in deception, which I already did, so that would give me access to another expertise. And then it also had this ability that I'll probably never use. When you take the attack action on your turn, you can replace one attack with an attempt to deceive a humanoid. We only have the one attack, but make a deception check contested by the target's insight. If the check succeeds, your movement doesn't provoke attacks of opportunity from the target, and your attack rolls against it have advantage. Both benefits last until the end of your next turn or until you use this ability on a different target. If the check fails, it can't be deceived in this way for an hour. So basically what we'd be doing is essentially taking the disengage action, but we'd get disengage with advantage on our next attack, on attack rolls against them on our next turn, right? Or any opportunity attacks we might take. So it's like a slightly improved disengage action. So that was that. Also, my DM let us play with a feat starting at first level, on top of all the stuff that we just talked about. So, with a feat at first level, I chose Infernal Constitution, which is going to be +1 to your Constitution score, making it a 16 from a 15, also giving us resistance to cold and poison damage, meaning we have cold, poison, and fire resistance, and advantage on saving throws versus being poisoned. So very survivable, a good way to keep yourself in the fight. So that was that. Then, again, also for this character, we chose at level 8 to do what? What do we choose at 8? At 8, we chose Resilient Wisdom to take our 11 Wisdom and make it 12, and then give us proficiency in Wisdom saving throws. Because we were pretty good at dexterity, we're pretty good at a lot of things, but being mind controlled and wisdom saving throws is something we were not good at. So we rounded that out. And then lastly, at level 12, we took dexterity +2 to give us 20 dexterity. And again, I chose Steel Wind Strike and Pass Wall for this magical secrets as well. So let's go back and look at the character. As far as magic items, this character has a Flame Tongue Rapier, which is really the best of the you can imagine for this character. So not only are we going to have this light source, but it's going to deal an extra 2d6 fire damage. So if we strike with this, it's going to deal our d8 at this point +5 piercing damage, 2d6 fire damage, and then potentially an extra 5d6 psychic damage if we use psychic blades. And again, we are still a full caster bard with all sorts of interesting magic, but we also have a very powerful melee attack. So we can kind of give off that perception of, I'm just a bard who plays the violin, you know, I can't really fight, and then someone gets in your face and you just stab them for a butt ton of damage. He also had a Headband of Intellect, which makes his intelligence 19. So that helps. He has gloves of Gloves of Thievery. So that's going to give him a +5 to lock picking checks. He can't actually pick lock because he doesn't have lock pick proficiency, but he has a +5 to it anyway. And it makes his sleight of hand go up by 5 as well. So his sleight of hand check currently, before he rolls, is an 18. Minimum of 19 again with a natural 1 on that roll to, an upwards of a 20 or a 38 if we get a natural 20. So very good at sneaking stuff around and dropping things in people's drinks as a poisoner type. He managed to get himself, the DM put out a magic item that he went through a whole big effort to turn a dress into a suit by a magical tailor, and this dress is basically, this now suit is +1 studded leather armor that requires attunement but gives resistance to lightning. So I was a big fan of this because now I'm resistant to cold, fire, lightning, and poison damage all the time, while I wear a very fancy suit that happens to function like +1 studded leather armor. So I don't look like I'm wearing armor, I just look like I'm wearing a suit, which helps provide that whole villainous persona. I think that's pretty much it. We have a couple potions. We have a rope of climbing that we got, and a couple potions. Nothing too crazy to talk about there. As far as spells go, this was another long story. We had a drunk game where everybody was having a good time and drinking, and the DM gave me a diamond that, as long as I had, like, it was an Eldritch Horror diamond, Azathoth, one of the most powerful Eldritch Horrors out there. As long as I have this diamond on my person, I have all the benefits, all the ability and spell benefits of a first level Great Old One's Warlock without having to take a level in Warlock, but I just don't get the proficiency bonuses, proficiencies or extra hit points. I fully admit that this is ridiculously overpowered, but the DM let me have it when he was drunk, and he just let me keep it. So that means I get the features of, what are the features here? Let's see, do I have them listed down here? I get Awakened Mind, the ability to talk into the one-way communication like a Great Old One Warlock has. And then I also get the spells. So I chose Green Flame Blade and Mind Sliver, which has now gone away, so I don't know what I'll take in place of that, but I took Green Flame Blade as my cantrip. And then as far as other spells, I think I took Hellish Rebuke and Sleep were the ones I took from the Warlock levels. But I also have that one Warlock slot that recharges on a short rest that I could, change that out. First level Warlock slot that recharges on a short rest. So I can use that for fun things as well. And also, again, the ultimate benefit is the fact that I have Green Flame Blade is, rather than just making an attack with my longsword, I could, again, if I wanted to, cast Green Flame Blade as an action, and then attack with my sword. And if I hit, I do a d8 plus 5 piercing damage, 2d8 fire damage from the Green Flame Blade, 2d6 fire damage from the Flame Tongue, and 5d6 psychic damage from the Psychic Blades, which again would all be doubled on a crit. So we'd be dealing, what is that, 2d8 here? Let's just roll it, right? So let's go over here to our Flame Tongue Rapier. We'll roll the damage. So that's going to be 8 damage there, plus another d8 for the crit is going to be, what is that? That's pretty cool. That'll be a total of 15. I'm going to have to write this down, I think, so we can keep track of this. 15 damage. Then we're going to roll our Green Flame Blade fire damage, which on a crit would be 4d8, which will deal 16 points. Then we're going to do our Flame Tongue damage here, which is going to be another 18. And then our Psychic Blades damage is now 10d6. Top of that, which is going to be 38 points of damage. So what do we got there? 31 plus 18 is 49, plus 38 is 87 points. So as a bard, we'd be able to stab somebody with a rapier for 87 points of damage, mixed with fire, psychic, and piercing. But also we could, in theory, if we rolled that well every time, do this 5 times a short rest, and we'd get all those uses of that back on a short rest, and still the cantrip and everything else is what it is. Yeah, and we'd be rocking an 18 AC to do all this while still having a free hand for spellcasting and our rapier in the other hand. Another thing I had mentioned up front was my DM let me trade in those proficiencies with other skills. or sorry, with other musical instruments. We traded those in for making custom poisons, since he was a poisoner with Poisoner's Kit. And we had one that was basically something that gave everybody, if they drink it, a disadvantage on insight checks to tell whether to tell if anyone's lying. And the other one was poison, a long-term poison damage one that would be like when they imbibe it, they don't feel the effects of it for 24 hours. And then they just take, and I forget what it was, like 3d6 or 3d8 poison damage. The thought process being, if you're dealing with your general average person, you might interact with them, slip poison in their drink, and then it doesn't take effect for 24 hours. So you could, in theory, be far away, and then all of a sudden they take poison damage and potentially drop dead, and there's no way to trace it back to you because it happened a whole 24 hours before. So that was that concept. So I know this was kind of a long one. I don't know. These build videos are kind of interesting. That's why I do enjoy doing like my It Builds character, where I'm building pop culture characters live on Twitch stream, because we can interact with it as we go, rather than me just talking to you about a character build. But also his name is Temerity, which basically means audacity, which I thought was an interesting tiefling name to take, because he's that kind of tiefling where he's so proud of himself. Like, he has his name mean like the audacity, essentially, which it was just an interesting choice of names for me. And again, he's a tiefling, right? He's got gold eyes with no pupils. He's got fangs. Like, he kind of gives off like he could be like freaky, kind of funky, scary vibe in and of itself. And he walks around with a casual demeanor. He wears suits instead of armor, fancy rapier at his hip. And again, he can do all sorts of things to make himself disappear, to make himself look like somebody else, to take on the persona of someone else. He can do things, again, like cast sleep, dissonant whispers, Phantasmal Force is a big one I use. I usually have it be, because the way Phantasmal Force works is the spell is like you put an illusion in someone's mind, and they make an intelligence saving throw, which is usually one that's not super good for a lot of folks. And you create a phantasmal object that they can see, no larger than a 10-foot cube. And it includes sound, temperature, and other stimuli that they only see, so they believe it is real. And then if they fail that, they have to use their whole action on each turn to examine this with an investigation check, not a saving throw, check, to see if they can see through it. And if they succeed, they realize it's an illusion and the spell ends. But they perceive that it's real the entire time. They rationalize any illogical outcomes, like it says, for example, a target attempting to walk across a phantasmal bridge that spans a chasm falls once it steps onto the bridge. If they survive the fall, they believe that the bridge still existed in their mind and comes up with some other explanation as to why they fell. They were pushed, they slipped, strong wind, like they're trying to rationalize it in their head. And they're so convinced that it actually can take the form of psychic damage in their head. So similarly, a phantasm created to appear as a fire, a pool of acid, or lava can burn the target. Each round on your turn, the phantasm can deal a d6 psychic damage to that target if they're within 5 feet of whatever they're perceiving is damaging them. Again, they perceive the damage type as the appropriate damage type to the illusion. So one thing I often like to do is make it look like it's concentration up to a minute too, by the way. So I often have it make it look like they stepped into a trap that like puts a box around them, a box that catches on fire. So they perceive that this is an opaque box that they cannot see out of. So they cannot see anything around them. And they perceive that the box is on fire. So they're burning and taking fire damage, which is a d6 psychic damage. But for them, they're trapped inside a box that they can't see out of. And they're taking fire damage because it's on fire. But everybody else in the combat can see them perfectly fine because it's an illusion that they're not affected by, as an example of something to do. So like Phantasmal Force is very much limited by what your DM will allow you to do and how creative you can get. And again, in a character that's very good in sneaking around and manipulation and that kind of thing, this could be a huge tool in your arsenal. Again, suggestion, mass suggestion to get in and out of places easily enough. Greater invisibility, the free invisibility from being a Glacia Tiefling. Dimension Door can obviously go a long way. as I said, animate objects to have a door walk off the hinges to open itself for you, or to fight for you, or use other things to fight for you. Again, mislead for like I took damage and I fell down and you hit the ground, cast mislead, and then you're invisible, but your duplicate's on the ground and like can move around and interact and talk in your voice while you run away as invisible person, and then the duplicate's there acting like you. Again, modify memory too. Actually, I didn't say that. No, you weren't here yesterday. That kind of thing. But then again, like I said, magical secrets, tricky. That's why I took Passwall and Steelwood Strike to kind of build that phenom on the battlefield as you run around teleporting, stabbing people, because I like it, and it reminds me of a lot of anime. And Passwall, like I said, I can imagine a ton of scenarios where you could be like, man, I really wish there was a door right there. Now there is. Let's go. But there may be better uses for it. Again, like I said, I'm still trying to think of them for my character, so let me know in the comments. Hopefully you all enjoyed this. Again, these build videos are kind of funky, but I really enjoy this character. I really like playing this character. Like I said, I feel like this does really work best either as a foil villain to your party, to your, if you're the DM, or in an evil campaign where, to most people's argument, Psychic Blades is not going to be good because you're not using your Bardic Inspiration to help your allies. But if you're not really interested in helping your allies, then it kind of works out well. So like I said, I give you free permission to use my character, Temerity, in any of your campaigns. He could make a very good villain, or he could also make a very good criminal contact for someone who has like the criminal background. He runs a poison shop. In my story, it was in Waterdeep. In your story, he'd be wherever you want. And I just kind of gave him a very soft spoken. He kind of always talks in a whisper. He doesn't really raise his voice, which in my mind, I also feel makes you more intimidating when like you can stare at somebody and give them like a death stare and smile your sharp fanged teeth, but you never raise your voice at all. It's always kept in a whisper and you're always calm, cool, and collected, but you just radiate that aura of power. That's how I always envision him. Again, I guess probably subconsciously, Dracula from the Castlevania games or the Castlevania Netflix series kind of inspired the character, because I'm a big fan of those games, or less, what is a man, a miserable little pile of secrets kind of thing, and more like just keeping the goblet swirling in your hand. Yeah, anyway, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. Please, seriously though, do you like this style of video? Do you not like it? How would you improve it if you were me? Would you want to know more backstory stuff? Would you just want to see the sheet and us go through it? Do you like me building it up from 1 to 12? Should I go higher than 12 all the way to 20? I don't know. I don't know what you want. I want to hear your thoughts, and we'll adjust it and fix things as we go. So, thank you again to my patrons on Patreon for continuing to support me. They get to vote on video topics for like the top 10s we do every week. They get to pick which ones we're going to do. So that's a fun thing they get to work on, as well as Q&As with me, merch discount codes, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And again, thank you all so much for watching and subscribing to this channel. If you haven't already, I would love it if you did so. I'm trying to hit 50,000 by my birthday on July 12th. That's 10 days away as of me recording this. Probably not going to happen because that is, 9,800 subscribers in 10 days time. Unless one of these goes massively viral, or I do some giveaway that makes everybody want to subscribe to the channel. I don't see that happening. But hey, I'll tell you, I'm going to do a giveaway. I have a whole bunch of books and things that I have extras of that I've received from different companies that I'm going to give away. And I think I'm going to give away like a shot at the table where I'll run a game or play in a game with folks for like a one-shot session. You bring your friends, and then we'll, you get to, that might be one of the giveaway things. So if you want to have me as your DM, that could be one of the things for the giveaway. So let's drive up that number and see if we can make it happen. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you next time.